Hey guys, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to talk about an important CSS property, that is CSS transitions. So we'll see what they are, how they work, how we can use them, how many properties are there in the CSS transition property. So there's this CSS transition property and there are sub properties inside it. So we're going to cover everything from the start till the end. So at the end of this video, you'll be able to use CSS transitions, and we'll also see a few bonus tips that I'll have at the end of the video. So make sure you watch this video till the end. So without wasting any further time, let's start discussing about CSS transition. So first, now we'll see the introduction of CSS transitions and what they are and how you might have seen them on a website. So when you visit a website, you might have noticed a few changes when you move around the website. Now those few changes could include, suppose you hover over a link or a button. So when you hover over a link, the link changes its color, or the button, it gets bigger in size. So these changes, or when you scroll through the website, you might have seen an effect over there, that when you're scrolling, it might show a different effect if you have seen some awesome sites. Then when you're using a website that's responsive, you have responsive images, you have responsive fonts. So when it also changes, there's an effect that is there. So using CSS transition, we can control these changes, and using CSS transition, we can apply these effects. So transition allows you to actually change the property values smoothly or over a given amount of time that you have given as input. So whatever changes that we have, suppose we want to change from one color to another color when we hover over a mouse, so we can use different transition properties to give that effect an even cool and an exciting feature. So that is what we can do with transition, rather than having the property take effect immediately. Now if you hover over a mic, immediately it changes, so it won't look nice. We're going to see how that looks and then compare it with when we apply CSS transition to it. So that is where we can use transition property to make it look cool and fun. Now the question, how do we use these transitions? So now let's see. You can see my code screen is open up over here, and I've created a folder called as transition. So now let me just create an HTML file and a CSS file, and I'll try to explain it to you how we can start using them. Okay, so now we have the HTML file. Let's add the boilerplate code. Okay, now we have added. Now let's add also a style sheet. So we'll go style.css. Okay, let's link the style sheet to our HTML page, and we'll link it here. And now I have the same hierarchical level. My index.html and style.css are both in the same folder, and CSS file is not in a different folder. But if you guys create a separate CSS file, then you might have to use / over here rather than using just style.css. Now I have it in the same folder, that's why I'm using style.css. But if you have it in a different folder, then you have to use / which tells the browser that you have to move up a folder while rendering the file. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now let's change the name to CSS transition. Okay, and now let's open it up with live server. So now this is the website. Basically we haven't added anything yet. So now quickly I'll add a few things. So I'll go inside the body, and I'm writing the code right now itself only because I want you to see how you guys can do it from scratch itself. Otherwise I could have written the code earlier on and I could have just displayed or demonstrated, but I'm going to find an interactive and a good way so that even you can learn. So what I've done here is I've added two divs over here. You can see it's a div 1 and then we have div 2. I've given them a class of box1 and box2. Now let's quickly style them here. So first we'll style the body. We'll remove the default margin and all the default values that we have. So let's make margin 0, and we'll make padding also 0, and box sizing will be border box. Okay, now let's style this divs. Now I'm going to have two divs because I want you to I want to show you the difference when you apply styling and when you don't. So I'm going to style the div commonly because we'll have the same style for all the divs, both the divs. So I'll give it a width of 10 rem and also give it a height of 10 rem, and let's give it a background color, so BG color, or you can just use background property, it's one and the same thing. And let's give it a, let's see how it looks right now. Okay, so this is what two divs are there, so this is what they look like, but they're sticking to each other, so we'll have to add margin to it. So let's go back here and we'll add margin of 1 rem, that is 16 px if you're using pixels as measurement. So now we have two boxes. Okay, and one more thing that we'll do is we'll display them as inline box so that they appear next to each other. Okay, this is what we'll do now, that the two boxes will be side by side. And now what we can do is we can start adding those properties over here. We'll write text align center, so the boxes will be in center. Okay, now these boxes are also in the center. Now what we'll do is, first we have this box 1. Okay, so right now we have not added any effect. Right now we just have two boxes, two simple boxes. So now I'm going to show you the two properties that you need every time you add a transition. Okay, so now what I want to do is when I hover over the div, I want to change the background color of that div. So suppose now if I hover over this div, hover means just move your mouse over that, and hover, this means hover in when you're going with your cursor over the box, and when you move out of that box, that's called hover out. Okay, so we're going to use these terms hover in and hover out. I just want you to be familiar with it. Hover in means we are moving over this, and hover out means we are moving out of this. Okay, so when I hover over this, I want to change the color of this background color of this box. So let's see how we can do that. So first I'll have to call the hover state of this div. So I'll call that box 1, because when I'll hover over box 1, I want to change it. So I'll add box 1 hover, and then I'll just add this property called as background color, and here I'll change it to some other color. Okay, now if I go back to Chrome, and now if you see I hover over this element, the color changes. Okay, the background color changes. You can see when I hover in, it changes. When I hover out, it changes back to its original form. And so this is the, what we did here was we just added a property over here called as background color. We haven't added transition yet. So now when we have to create a transition event, you need two properties. The first one, the CSS property you want to add changes to, and the second thing is the duration. Okay, and the duration should always be specified, otherwise it will have no effect, as the default value is always 0. Now what are we talking about? Let's see. So now that brings us to our first property of the day, that is called as transition property. So let's add a few more changes here before we talk about that. The width is 10 and the height is 10, so let's try and increase the height to around 20 rem. So we'll not increase the width because we have the two boxes side by side. So now when I hover over it, you can see it changes in height and also in background color. But the change that you see is happening almost instantly. As soon as you hover it, it changes and it does not look good. I'm just going to show you the difference when we add hover property and transition effects and when we do it without transition effects. So I'll just copy this over here, I'll paste it, and I'll just change this box 1 to box 2. So now both of our boxes have the same background effect and the height. Now first property that we have is transition property. So this is the property that you first add and it specifies the name. Okay, so the first property that we have is called as the transition property. This is the property that you add the first time. So I told you about two properties that are always needed. The first was the CSS property that we are applying changes to, and the second is the duration. So transition is the first property that you always add the first, and it specifies the name of the CSS property the transition is for. So now in our example, you can see over here, the normal div that we had a background color of indigo, but in the hover state, we changed the background color. So this is the property that we're applying changes to. Again, first initially we had an height of 10 rem, and the second time when we changed it, we changed the height to 20 rem. So these are the two properties that we have, transition property, that we should always add. Now I haven't added them in our example, but it was just an example to show you guys how it works, and you should always use this property that I'm talking about, and I'll show you how to use them. So what we'll do is we'll go into the parent div over here, that's this div, and here, okay, what I'll do is rather than calling that div, I'll call this separately. This is box 1, and here what I'll do is, why did I create it separately? I styled the, sorry, these are the common styles that I had for this div. Okay, both the div had these styles, so I did a parent class rather than typing it out differently in each one of them. But the next properties that we're going to see separately for each parent div. Okay, so this is a div that we had common styles for, and both of them are divs, so I did them. But now what we're going to do is we're going to style them separately with the class that they have. Okay, because we have to always style the parent div. Now what we'll do here is the first property, it is called as transition property. The name itself is transition property. You can see in the right also specifies the name of the CSS property to which transition is applied. Now transition, generally I told you, it means changes that we perform. So what property did we change? We changed the background color. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to write background color over here, and the next property that we changed was height. So again, what you can do is you can write tr property, and then you can write here height. So what we did was we just specified which properties we changed. Now again, one more thing, this is the one way you can write if you are a beginner, or a simpler way would be just to go in this line itself, add a comma and just write height. Okay, so you have to tell the browser, or anything that renders, browser generally renders the CSS file, you have to tell that we have applied transition property, we have applied changes to the background color and the height. Okay, so that is why we use this property. So here you saw we changed the background color and height, and we just added them by using commas, and we can use multiple values here. Suppose in the future even I want to change the width also. Suppose here I go and I change the width also, then also I can do that by simply adding a comma here. And then there's one more method that we have, which is we can also use all. And if you don't want to type out each and every name, and it will have the same values, what that all is, we're going to talk in the later of this video. We're going to talk about that, what all is there. You can see we have a keyword. If I just remove this over here, and I'll just a second, I'll just remove this over here, and if I just type all, you can see all, and it says every property that is able to undergo a transition will do so. So we'll see what this all is in later on in this video. We're going to talk about that, but for now this property alone does not do much. Now you can see I've added this first transition sub property. I'm sorry, I keep saying transaction again and again. Now I've added this first transition sub property, which is called as transition property. If I go back to our website, there's nothing changing, it's still the same. Okay, it's still the same. But now what I'll do is, with this property, the another property that you have to use is called as transition duration. This brings us to our second property, transition duration. It is the amount of time in which you want the transition to take place, or the amount of time the transition will run for. It can be fast, it can be slow, and it depends totally on the input that is provided by you. Now, as I said earlier on in this video, that you have to specify a duration, you have to specify a time limit, or else the transition will be there as if it never existed, because the default value will be 0. So the name of the property is called as transition duration. So you can go over here and you can write trdr, and it comes up in auto suggest in VS Code. So you have to write transition seconds. And one more thing is, you can either input the value in milliseconds or in seconds. You cannot use any other unit than that. So I'll just add 1 second of transition duration, and now let's see the change. Now you can see that instead of, you can see over this one, so this changes gradually over time in 1 second, but this second div that we have, it changes almost instantly. Now I'll just do one more quick thing. What I'll do over here is I'll go to box 2 and I'll add a position property of absolute. Let's see what happens now. So now you can see that the div 2 does not change because it is not relative to div 1 anymore. Okay. Now you can see that this changes over time in 1 second, and also while going back, it takes a second to finish the transition. But this almost instantly, it happens almost instantly. So this is the effect that duration has. You can see even the color changes take some time, but whereas here it changes instantly, just in the blink of an eye it changes. So that is what we have, the two properties that you should always use. It's transition property and transition duration. Okay, so you can now add it separately to different properties that we have if you want to have that effect. It's not compulsory that you have added 1 second, so everything should work in 1 second only. You can add a different time, you can add a different duration to this background color, different duration to this height, and we'll see how that works later on in this video. But now, right now, as we are only starting with basics, I'm only going to show you each and every property differently. Okay, moving on. The third property is called as transition delay, and it's a pretty simple property. It specifies the time to wait before starting the transition. Okay, so now if you go back to the browser and you check what you have done, so you can see the transition starts immediately as we hover over this. Okay, it does not stop for some time and then it starts. Sometimes you might want to have that effect. I generally don't use this. Sometimes I've used this when I want something to wait for some time and then start, because almost instantly when a user visits the website and you start doing transitions from left and right, it does not look good. So we'll see what this property is, going back to our code editor. So what we'll do over here is we'll go in this box 1 again itself, and again I'll just copy this duration over here and I'll add it to the hover state over here. I'll add this two properties to the box 2 it's also, so that I'm going to compare these two throughout this video so that you guys understand how each and every property works. So up till now we have seen two properties, transition delay and transition property, and the third one we are talking about is transition delay. So again I'll add a delay of 1 second over here, and if I go back to the browser now to check the two boxes, now you can see it stops for 1 second and then it starts. Whereas this, when we have all the styles over here, this starts as soon as we hover over it, and if I hover out, it stops, the transition ends. But again, if I go over it, stops for 1 second, and even when I move out, it stops for 1 second and then it ends the transition. So this is what you can see is happening. Hover over it, stops 1 second. If I increase the time from 1 second now, if I change it to like 3 seconds, you can see now I've changed it to 3 seconds. Going back, now it will wait for 1, 2, 3. After 3 seconds, the transition will start. And when I move out, 1, 2, 3. After 3 seconds, the transition will end. Okay, so this is the thing that delay does, and this is the one without the delay. You can see it starts almost instantly. So this is what transition delay is. Now I want you guys to I want to tell you guys something else. I'm sorry. So what I'll do over here is, now I'll remove this transition duration from the parent div. So this is the natural div that we have, and this is the hover state that we have. So we are adding a pseudo class. Hover is called a pseudo class. So we'll add this over here. So I've removed transition duration from here. I've gone into this hover state and I'll add it here, and I've saved it. Now if I go back to the browser, now if I hover over it, you can see there's a delay. I'll remove the delay, just a second. I'll remove this delay property. I'll save it, and now if I go back, and you can see if I hover over it, you can see the duration is there for 1 second. But when I hover out, you can see the duration is not working anymore. Whereas here we have added the duration to the parent property, and here we added it to the pseudo class. So it's gone. So for all the transition property is the same thing. So you keep in mind whenever you're coding, you're writing your code, you do not make this mistake, because I made this mistake a lot of times when I was a beginner, and I used to wonder and spent hours on Stack Overflow wondering why my code isn't working. So it was this silly mistake that I did. So I was adding the transition property to the pseudo element that we're making changes to, but you should always add them to the parent element that you have. Okay, so in this case, our parent element would be the box that we have. So I'll just cut it, and here I'll just paste it inside the box. Okay, so I hope you guys understood what delay is and where you should write all your transition properties. Moving on. Okay, so now moving on to the fourth property that we have. It is called as transition timing function. Now this is one of the biggest properties in this four properties that we studied. So for this, I'm going to create a new HTML file because this is kind of important. So I'm just going to name it timing func.html. Func means functions. So here again, I'll add a few things really quickly. So just bear with me while I'll do it. And I'll link the CSS, the same CSS file, because I'm going to just comment out the rest of it. Or what I'll do is, again, I'll create a timing.css file, and here I'll make the changes. That will be better. So I'll just change this to timing.css. Now what I'll do over here is quickly I'll add divs. I'll add same box 1, and I'll just repeat it 5 times. Okay, again I'll just change them 2, 3, 4 and 5. You'll understand why I've added all of this. So first let me just copy the styles that we have over here for the divs and this body, and I'll paste it over here. Let's check how our timing func.html looks like. We'll open it with live server. So now we have 5 blocks. Okay, and one more thing that I have to do over here is I'll go inside, and now before moving that, we'll talk about timing function. This was the code that I needed to be ready. So here we are. So timing functions, transition timing function, it basically describes the pace of transition, which means that the transition should be fast, slow, it should be medium, or what should be the speed of the transition timing function. The default value that we have is called as ease, which means that it starts low, it's fast in the middle, and it is slow towards the end of the transition that we have. So whatever transition we saw till now, if I go back to Chrome and the earlier HTML page, you can see there's a pace that is followed by this transition. You can see it follows the pace in that transition that we have. So the default value is ease, which means that the transition will start slow, it will be fast in the middle, and then it is again slow towards the end. It does not end up abruptly. Abruptly means suddenly it does not stop. So you can see it's slow, fast, slow. Okay, so we have many properties, but we are going to cover the 5 main properties that we have in transition timing function. So I'll just write down the name of this property. The first one is called as ease. The second one is ease in. The third one we have is ease out. Okay. The fourth one we have over here is ease in, out. We'll see how they work, how they are and everything. First, let me just write it out. And the last one we'll see is called as linear. Okay, and now they are black in color, so I guess it will be hard to see, and the text is also small, so I'll just increase the text size and the color. So I'll go to div, I'll change the color to white, and I'll add the font size of 3 rems over here. Now let's go back to Chrome. You can see I'll have to decrease the font size. I guess I'll just make it 1 rem then, or 1.5 rem, because 1 rem is 16px, which is the default font size. Yeah, so now you can see it is visible clearly. And now what we'll do is we'll add transition effect to all of these blocks first. Okay, so again we'll just copy the code from our last file over here. for all of these boxes, and I'll just change their names. So I'll go over here and I'll paste this after div. So for box 1 and box 2, if we check, we already have a transition in place. So if I go over here, see, we have a transition in place. So but we'll have to add it for the second, both of them. Why is one block not showing? We have ease out also. Let me check again why ease out is not being displayed. What's the problem? If I remove this block, what happens if the space is not full? The third block is not showing only. Let's inspect. We have ease out. Okay, so it's being covered up by ease in because we added the position absolute property. So I'll have to remove that from the style.css. Here, position absolute. Now it should work. And I'll also add the box 5th over here. Now let's check back. Okay, so now we have 5 boxes, and you can see we have the transition for first 2 because we just copied it from the previous one, but we don't have it for the rest of them though. So again, what I'll do, I'll just copy all of this and I'll paste it once more, and I'll just change. We have box 1, box 2 over here, and here it'll be box 3, box 4, and this is box 3 hover, and this will be box 4 hover, and again we have to add it one more time for the last box, which is the 5th box. Don't worry, I'll explain you the code. I'll just type it out first so that I'll be able to explain it to you guys in a more better way. So I'll change it to box 5. Now all of our boxes will now have a transition effect in place, but we have not added transition timing function yet. It is all the same. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll go inside this, and here what I've done, again the same thing. Box 1, I've added the transition property that I'm changing, that is the background color and the height. So the same thing, and I've added transition duration, and this is the same thing that I followed for each and every box. So even if you check out box 3 and box 4, which I'll just paste here after box 2, I'm doing the same thing in both these boxes also, and also in box 5. So these are the basic changes that we have already seen in this video earlier on. And in box hover, what I've changed the background color and the height. So now the next thing that we're studying, the function that we're studying, is called as transition timing function. So again, where do you have to add it? You have to add it to the parent element. So this is our parent element, and here you can just write ti, and you can see it appears in the screen, transition timing function. If I click enter, you can see these are all the values that are there in transition timing functions. We have ease, ease in out, ease out. We have initial, inherit, linear, step end, step start, steps, unset, and this is cubic bezier, which means you can set your own timing functions. You can even create your own timing functions. We are not going to go that deep. We are going to only see the top 5 that I've already written, which is ease, ease in out, ease out, and linear. These are the only 5 that we're going to see. So first, the default value is ease. Now before actually adding this, let's see, this is our basic default value that we have, which is ease. You can notice the change when it happens. Okay, so it is slow in the start, fast in the middle, and again slow in the start. Okay, so if I go back here now and I add ease over here, now this is the default value. Even if we don't add it, it is there. So you can see there's not much change. You can see it's the same thing. You can see here also it's the same thing if you compare both of them. Now the next one we have for box 2 is ease in. Now let me copy this over here and I'll paste it. Actually what I'll do is I'll paste all of them and then I'll show you what they are and how they work. Okay, so it will be ease out. The fourth one we have is ease in out. And the last one that we have is called as linear. So instead of ease, it will be linear. Okay, and now let's go back to Chrome. And now you can see this is ease, this is the default value. Now the second one is ease in. So it is slow, fast, and you can see it stops abruptly towards the end. Again, if I move out, slow start and stops suddenly. But whereas this, you can see it stops slowly. Again, if you notice the change, this is slow at the end. but this stops suddenly. You can see it ends in a sudden movement. So it starts slow, it gets fast in the middle, and then it stops suddenly. Okay, now the next one that we have is ease out. So it begins abruptly, it gets slow, and then it ends slower. You can see it is like this. It begins abruptly, it starts suddenly, then it's slow, and then it also ends slow. You can see it starts suddenly, whereas this you can see starts slow. Then if you compare, you can see it starts suddenly. You can see again, it starts fast, it gets slow in the middle, and then it also ends slowly. The next one is ease in out. So what ease in out does is it is slow at the start, fast in the middle, and again slow in the end. So slow, fast, slow. If you compare again, you can see it's much faster than that. If you see ease and you see ease in out, you can see ease in out, it starts slow, it gets fast in the middle, and then it again ends slow. And the last one that we have is linear, which is same pace is followed throughout the transition. At the start, the same speed is there, at the middle, the same speed is there, and at the end also the same speed is there. Okay, so this was the last transition property that we had, which is called as transition timing function. Now after this, we have a shorthand property called as transition. But before talking about the next property, I want to show you guys a website which is really cool. Now I've created this effect where you can compare each and every one, and you saw how we can use transition timing function. That is why I've written out this entire code, but I have even a better demonstration of how it works, and I'll also mention the link in the description. So this is the code pen by Zell Liu, or I don't know how to pronounce it properly, I'm sorry. Different languages have different pronunciation. According to me it's Zell Liu. So this is the code that he had written, and there were a few changes. I've made those changes, and now what I've done here is, you can see I've added a button. When I click on, he added a button where if you click on button, you can see how this transition works. I didn't add this button because it contains JavaScript, and if you guys might not know JavaScript, I'll have to explain each and everything. I know JavaScript, and I can write this code, but it's easier if I'm teaching CSS. I'm just using CSS and HTML, which is familiar with you people who don't know about JavaScript. So if you know JavaScript, it's a good thing. You can just use this toggle class to switch between these sets, and you can create two more classes when you click on this button, and you can do that. So but now you have see I have added each of them, and I start this transition. So now you can see they start and end at the same point, but as according to the pace we discussed, you can see now that ease, it starts slow, gets fast in the middle, and it ends slow. Then ease in, we have slow, fast, and stop suddenly. Then if you check out ease out, it begins fast, it gets slow, and then it also ends slow. And then in out, it is slow, fast, slow. And then the linear, we have same speed throughout. You can see they start at no matter what point, they end at the same point. They start from the end point, no matter what, they start at the same point. So this is what I basically want you guys to know. So the link is in the description, you guys can check it out. This is a really cool demonstration of how timing functions work. So now let's go back to our code editor. Now the shorthand property that we're going to talk about. So if you guys are writing CSS code, you probably know about shorthands, and if you guys don't know, let me just explain it really quickly. So there are transition properties that we saw. We saw sub properties. So we saw transition property, this is the first sub property. Then we have transition duration, then we also saw delay, and then we saw transition timing function. So these were the four sub properties that we saw. But what if I told you that rather than writing 4 lines of code to apply these properties, you can do it in one single line? Yes, you heard that right. Now let me just add delay over here so that we'll have all the 4 properties, and I'll add a delay of 0.2 seconds. So you can see now that we have a delay of 0.2 seconds, and these are the 4 properties that are there in transition. So I'll just comment them out quickly. Okay, so now after commenting them out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can write these 4 properties in just one line, but you have to follow a sequence, and we'll also see what that sequence is. So the name of the property is blunt transition. It's just transition, nothing else. And here you can write all of these 4 properties. So now the first thing for box 1 that we changed was the background color. So here I'll write the name of the property that I changed. So it was background color. The next thing that I'll write is the amount of duration that we had this for the property. So it was 1 second. The third thing that you have to write is the transition function that we want to use. So I want it to be ease, let it be default, but you still have to write it. Even if you don't write it, it will be there, but it's a good practice that you write it if you want to change it, or if you want to later on if you want some other value there. And after that, what we'll write is we'll write the delay, so 0.2 seconds. Now keep in mind that I've only added this to background color. Now if I go back to my code and if you check out this box 1, now you can see only the background color changes. Actually, you know what, I'll just copy this part over here and I'll close this timing because the work for this is done, and I'll go here, and for this box 1 where we have added this transition duration and timing function, I'll just comment this out again, and here after this I'll just paste this code. Okay, so this is the code. We have duration, delay, timing function. So the sequence that you have to follow is the name of the property, that is transition property. Then you have to follow duration. After that you have timing function. So let me just cut it out from here and I'll paste it above delay so you guys can refer it if you forget the sequence. So this timing function, and then we have to write delay. Okay, so now I've commented this out, but if I go back to the code, you can see that now this follows the same. Okay, this follows the same. You can see background color changes, but the width, the transition is not applied. Okay, for the background color we can see there's delay, and then there's 1 second duration, then there's also timing function, but for the width it is not there. Now why is that? If you remember, whatever transition property we're changing, we have to mention all of them. So we are also changing the width. So now you might ask where you can add this width. So what you can do is you can easily just put a comma here and you can write width, and again you can just copy the same thing, and suppose here you want to change the delay. So I'll change the delay to 0.5 seconds, and even if I want to change the duration, so I'll change the duration to 2 seconds. So if I want to add different values to these properties, I can also do that. And now if I go back to the browser, and now you can see background changes earlier on, but the width changes later on. Okay, so this is all about our shorthand property. And rather than if you have same values, now I have the same values for all this duration and ease and 0.2 seconds and everything. But if you have different values, you can use this method. But if you have the same values, what you can do is just go here, rather than writing background color, what you can do over here, you can just change it to all, save it, and it's changed to all now. So if I go back here now, and if I go here, you can see it still works the same. Okay, so I don't have to write this 4 lines of code for the same thing. You can see it has been done only in 1 line of code. So we have transition properties, we have duration, we have the timing function, and then we have this delay that we have. So you should always use this shorthand properties because they are efficient and the correct way to code. So if you guys are having some troubles, you should practice them once in a while. You can try adding multiple values. As you saw, we can do it with adding commas. You can add multiple values. Here also you can see we added using this comma, we added 2 values. You can do that. It's very good. You can practice it out. You can change the values for both the properties and you can see how it works. So that way you'll understand everything more better, because if you practice, that is the only thing, that is the only way you'll learn properly. So moving on, we have completed all the sub properties in CSS transition, and we also saw this shorthand property. So now I'll talk about a few things, take it as bonus tips regarding this transition. So I already told you at the start of this video that I'm also going to talk about a few bonus tips. So you should keep following me till the end of the video. So now we'll see how to use transition function with the help of transformations. So transformation basically means changing from one state to another. So what are these transformation functions? That is what we're going to talk about now, and how we can use them. So first let us add a transformation property over here. So this is again box 1, and here what I'll do is now I'll just delete all of this, because now I'll just add, let's say, transform over here, that I'm adding transform. Okay, actually, you know what, I'll just leave it here because all is also good for me, because I'm only adding transform property. So I'll go inside this hover state and I'll add the transform property over here. So is transform, and what I'll do is I'll rotate this box. Sometimes you see you have a cool effect when you're hovering over an image or something. So you can write, I'll just rotate this box 180 degrees. Let's go back to our code and let's see what's happening. So now you can see my box rotates 180 degrees. The width is changing, but you can see my box rotates 180 degrees. So that is what you can do. You can also use transform with this transition properties, transition effects. You can also use transform. You can also rotate 360 degrees. Okay, now let's see how it rotates in 360 degrees. You can see it rotates completely, not just in 180 degree, and you can see it looks a lot nice. Now I can also change one more thing, which is the width. Is the height is only changing, the width is having a problem. So I'll also copy this code over here, and with the height I'll also change the width. So it'll be width over here and here. Now if I check it out, you can see now the width and height both changes, and even you can see this box also shifts to the right. Okay, so this is how it looks like, and it looks really cool if you see like that. Okay, so this effect is what you can do with transform. I'm not going to talk much about transform because this video is about transition, and also this is a bonus tip. So if you guys want a video on transformation and all the types of transformation that we have, you can comment in the you can mention it in the comment section that make a video on that. So I'll also list out all the transform properties that we have. Okay, so now that we saw how to use shorthand, let me tell you more tricks that will save you. This is all about using transform with translation. You can see this is also a property that we have changed, so I don't have to do much. I've just to write it here, and as we have written all here, these are all the property that we're changing, so it automatically changed for this box. Okay, so by using this few tricks that I'm going to tell you, you can add transition properties to two at once. So we already saw this, I guess, and I told you about it. You can see here also we have done the same thing. So what, again, I'll show you this once more. So what I'll do is I'll add transition over here, and here I'll write the background color first that I'm changing. So it will be background color, and the duration will be 1 second, and then we have to add linear. So I'll add the timing function that is linear, and after that I'll add a 0.5 seconds of delay that is there. And now if I go back to the browser, you can see now that the duration, the background color is changing very late. You can see, and the width and the height, it is not being followed by the transition function because we haven't added that here. Okay, so if you go back, you can see we haven't added width and height over here. But now if I want to add width and height, and I want to add a different duration and a different delay to it, so what I will do is I'll just write comma and I'll write width. I'll add the duration, I'll just keep the duration same because, okay, I'll just change the duration and make it quicker. It will be 0.5 second, or let's increase it to 1.5 seconds. It will be linear, and the delay would be 0. Or let's say 1 second. Now let's see if the width is also working. So if we check now, the width is also working. You can see the width changes after delay, but the height is not working. Okay, so now the width and background color, both the properties are working, but height is not working. So what I'll do is, again, I'll put a comma over here. I'll add height. This is the name of the property, and after that we have the duration that we have. So let me just reduce it to 0.5 seconds. It'll be linear, and let's remove the delay. I don't want a delay over here. So what I'll do over here is, if I hover over it, now you can see the height is also there, and it is also expanding properly, and you can see it works very well. So you can see this effect actually looks very, very, very good, right? Now if I hover over it, you can see it looks very good. Yeah, so this is the way you can manipulate this transition effects and make your website look very cool. Now if you have an effect over here where you see that this is looking, you want to change the way it looks, so you can just hover over it. You can see this opens up. If you have a button or a link somewhere, and when you want the user to hover over it, you can see it expands, it opens up, then again when you hover out, it closes, it closes itself, and then it again goes back to its normal state. So this is what I was talking about, the transition effect. This is the one tip that I have shared with you again. Now here we added all the transition properties, but not just one but two properties or three properties that we wanted to change. So we added background color, we added width, and we added height. We also have transform. So again I'll write just here, I'll write transform, and I'll write 1 second over here. I'm not going to add anything else, and we have already added transform over here. So now if I go back, it will also transform. You can see, so you can easily manipulate everything by using this transition effects. Now again, earlier on I talked 2 or 3 times, I talked about this property. Now this is the last point of this video. Okay, earlier also I talked 2 or 3 times about this all keyword that we have in transition property. So let me elaborate it even more so that you guys can easily understand what this all property is all about. So let's talk about this. Now even if we are using shorthands, you can see we are using a shorthand here, so it can be a lot to write it. You can see we have to write it this much for each and every transition that we are using. So what we can do is, instead of writing all the names of this property separately, if you don't want it to change, or if you don't want a delay or a duration, you can just do simple thing. You can just write all here, and then you can write whatever you want, such as duration will be 1 second, it will be linear, and the delay will be 0.2 seconds. So now what is the difference between, what I'll do is I'll just comment this out, okay, and it'll be 1 second. Okay, so I'll save this, I'll just comment this code out. And now what I'll do over here is, again I'll create a transition function. I'll write transition over here, and here what I'll do is, now this time I'll just write all, and I'll write 1 second duration, and here I'll write linear, timing function will be linear, and then the delay will be of 0.2 seconds. So the difference between these two codes is, while we use all, so we'll have all of these later on, all of these properties that we have, it will be same for all of the properties that we have changed. So background color will have the duration of, so the background color will have the duration of 1 second, it will be linear, and the delay will also be 0.2 seconds. Okay, and then the width and height will also have this same amount that we have passed everywhere over here. But while this is very dynamic. Okay, so you can change background color at whichever duration, you can increase the duration, you can decrease the duration, and you can manipulate it a lot more using this combinations. We call it combinations, and then we have this all. Okay, so that was the end of our tutorial on this CSS tutorial transition properties. I hope you guys learned something new today and you understood everything I explained in this video. If you guys have any doubts whatsoever regarding CSS transition properties, mention them in the comment section or DM me on Instagram. I am very active on Instagram. I'll try to clear your doubts as I'm familiar with this topic, so I'm sure I can help you out. If you have any doubts, I'll help you to clear them. Now I do not mention it in the middle of the video or at the start of the video that you have to like this video or something, but I've seen recently that many people watch my videos but they do not like it or they do not subscribe it. Many of my videos have reached 4k 5k views and 1k and 10k, even 10k and 8k, but people don't subscribe to my channel and they do not like my videos, or there's no sort of interaction. So now I want you guys to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also hit the bell icon so that you get notified the next time I post a video. So I am always posting tutorials and videos that are very helpful. Now follow me on Instagram where I post daily content that is related to web development, which is HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I post helpful tips that I cannot share on YouTube daily. So I'm very active on Instagram. So follow me, become a part of my community so that you can be a better developer. If you guys want the source code, like the video. Let us reach 500 likes, not much, and also comment below how you found this video, if it was helpful or not. I'll add the link of the source code and my Instagram page in the description below. That's where you can find all of the links that are required by this video or that are there in this video. That's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next video.